Well, I did look at some numbers before I came. You know, it's interesting because you can look at the experience of any one university and you see different trends. And, you know, to some extent, you have to realize we control our own trends. We do have admissions offices that decide who should come, and we make investment decisions. Brown is down to about 20% of the majors are in the humanities. Some decline over the last decade, in large part because Brown has been building in sciences and engineering, and I think so I wouldn't extrapolate that nationally. When you look at national data on the fraction of BAs that are in humanities, you know, honestly, it doesn't show a crisis. If you look at the data, they're really interesting, and I hadn't done it before I was preparing for this panel. About 10% of BAs were in the humanities in 1950. There was then this huge boom, climbed up to about 17% at the peak in 1968, but then by 1975 was down to under 10%. And it's been there ever since, sort of ups and downs, and it's very, you know, it goes with the business cycle. When there's higher unemployment, students move out of the humanities. When there's lower unemployment, they move back in. So I think it makes sense that we're worried about it now because we're, you know, we've had a bad period of, you know, one of the largest recessions in ages, and then a jobless recovery. Do we think that's going to last forever? I certainly hope not. You know, the other thing that's interesting, if you go back even farther historically and you read what people were writing about, you know, around the time of the Great Depression, it was very similar. You know, it was sort of, why are you wasting your time on this useless knowledge? Go out and do something practical. So, you know, I'm a big believer in the value of the humanities. I think, you know, the real question is whether something fundamental has changed that is going to drive things in a different direction than it has for the past 40 years. I don't really see any reason to think that's true, so I'm probably less pessimistic than others. I have, over the past 5 years, seen, and you know, I was chair of an economics department at Princeton when enrollments went from, or number of majors went from in the 80s up to about, you know, 200. And the same thing has happened to Brown, at Harvard, at most of the colleges I've looked at. And I think that's really recession driven. Those numbers are starting to drop in a lot of places. So we're coming back into a different place. And you know, frankly, I think that's a good thing. People should go into economics if they love economics, not just because they think they need to get a job. So I'm not that pessimistic. I'm really not.